Okay. The second premise of the book is that traditional communities don't often voluntarily give up or sell the resources on which their communities are based until their communities have been destroyed. It follows that those who want the resources will do what they can to destroy traditional communities. Following quick on that is the third premise. Our way of living is based on, requires, and would collapse very quickly without persistent and widespread violence. Oh, and then we get to a really fun one. This is a great premise. Okay, civilization is based on a clearly defined and widely accepted, yet often unarticulated hierarchy. And violence done by those higher on the hierarchy to those lower is either transparent or fully rationalized. And violence done by those lower on the hierarchy to those higher is met with shock, horror, and the fetishization of the victims. And the way this can work on a family level, those of you who've read language know that my father is extremely violent. Broke my sister's arm. My brother has epilepsy from blows to the head. He raped my mother, my sister, and me. And within our family, the violence would flow that direction. He could be violent with impunity. But the one time that my brother fought back, he was beaten far worse than any other time because he'd committed blasphemy. And similarly, I don't know if it's been in the paper here, all over New England people had heard about this, that a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, there was a mountain biker killed by a mountain lion down in LA. And this, of course, makes news everywhere. But not many people know that they're building houses on some of the last Florida panther habitat in Florida. And so it's very, the one time that a shark bites a human, it's a big deal. But sharks are being driven systematically extinct. And, I don't really like Bob Melvin. I think he should be fired. It's a baseball joke. And similarly, there's when there were 3,000 people killed on 9/11, that's a big deal. But there's more people than that die of preventable cancer in the United States every 3 or 4 days. There's more children than that die around the world because of U.S. domestic and foreign policies every same deal 3 or 4 days. And so there's this fetishization of the victims when it goes the other direction. The fifth premise of the book is that the property of those higher on the hierarchy is more valuable than the lives below. So those above can acquire more property, that is, make more money, by destroying the lives of those below. But if those below destroy the property of those above, then the lives, and that's called, the first is called production, by the way, and if those below damage the property of those above can destroy the lives of those below, and that's called justice. And we all know the example, Jeff Lewis, 22 years for torching 3 SUVs, and which is far more than you get if a man rapes a woman or if a man beats his wife to death, his wife. So that's that hierarchy in operation. The sixth premise is a fun one too. Civilization isn't redeemable. Our culture will not undergo any sort of voluntary transformation to a sane and sustainable way of living. I ask people all over the country, do you think that our culture is going to undergo a voluntary transformation to a sane and sustainable way of living? Nobody ever says yes. A lot of people laugh, even in New England. And so the question becomes, if you don't believe that the culture is going to undergo a voluntary transformation to a sane and sustainable way of living, what does that mean for your strategy and for your tactics? And the answer is we don't know, because we don't talk about it. Because we spend so much time trying to pretend that we have hope. And it's killing us. One of the smartest things the Nazis did was they co-opted rationality and they co-opted hope. And one of the ways they did that was by making it so that it was in the Jews' rational best interest to not resist at every step of the process. So, would you rather get an ID card or would you rather resist and possibly get killed? You want to move to a ghetto? You want to resist and possibly get killed. Want to get on a cattle car? Want to resist and possibly get killed. Want to take a shower? You want to resist and possibly get killed. At every step of the way, it was in their rational best interest to not resist. But I'll tell you something really interesting, which is that the Jews who participated in the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising had a higher rate of survival than those who went along. The Jews who participated in the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising had a higher rate of survival than those who went along. The Jews who participated in the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising had a higher rate of survival than those who went along. Keep that in mind over the next 10 years. Oh, we're going to jump another direction too, which is the 10th premise of the book is that the culture as a whole, most of its members are insane. I don't really need to talk about that, do I? If I could get across one thing in my work, it would be that the government is a government of occupation and the culture is a culture of occupation. And of course, all of my American Indian friends are telling me what the hell took me so long to figure that one out. I'll read a short little thing from the new book, if I can find it. Okay, here we go. If Nazis or other fascists took over North America, what would we all do? Yeah, we'd think about the baseball season. What would we all do if they implemented goddamn Grady Little, by the way, for keeping Pedro Martinez in? What would we all do if they implemented Mussolini's definition of fascism? Fascism should more appropriately be called corporatism because it's a merger of state and corporate power. That was Mussolini, by the way, not Chomsky. And what would we do if they then instituted laws allowing them to put a significant portion, say 1/3, of all Jewish males from the ages of 18 and 35 into concentration camps? What if this occupied country called itself a democracy, but most everyone understood elections to be shams, with citizens allowed to choose between different wings of the same fascist or following Mussolini corporate party? What if anti-government activity was opposed by stormtroopers and secret police? Oh, I'll tell you my secret fantasy, which won't be secret after this, which is that the next time they have one of those WTO or FTAA or whatever meetings, that all the cops suddenly turn around and start shooting at the WTO representatives. Because they have a lot more in common with us than they do with them. And that's happened before. That actually happened. It was in 1880 in Pennsylvania. The militia handed over their guns to the strikers. It also happened at the Bastille, where when they stormed the Bastille, all the guards suddenly turned and killed their officers, which should always be encouraged. So would you fight back? If there already existed a resistance movement, would you join it? Substitute the word African American for Jewish and ask yourself the same questions. Now, would you resist if the fascists irradiated the countryside, poisoned food supplies, made rivers unfit for swimming, and so filthy you wouldn't even dream of drinking from them anymore? What if they did this because, hell, I can't finish that sentence because no matter how I try, I can't come up with a motivation good enough even for fascists to irradiate and toxify the landscape and water supplies? If fascists systematically deforested the continent, would you join an underground army of resistance, head to the forests, and from there to the boardrooms and to the halls of the Reichstag to pick off the occupying deforesters, and most especially those who give them their marching orders? It's like, we're all so crazy. If space aliens came down from outer space, I guess that's where they come from, if aliens came down from outer space and they started to systematically deforest the planet, to vacuum the oceans, and to give dioxin, to put dioxin in every mother's breast milk, every stream in the United States is contaminated with carcinogens. Every stream. I mean, it's amazing what we can do when we put our minds to it. And if they did that, and what would we do? I mean, I think it's pretty clear that if space aliens were doing all of this, that we would all just put on our camo outfits and grab our AK-47s and head off to the woods. Am I like the only person here with an AK-47? Or, has anybody seen the movie Red Dawn? Oh, isn't that the greatest? I love that movie. Okay, the movie is about the commies invade from Central America. The Cubans and Soviets come in through Nicaragua. They fly up to the United States. They don't fly United, and they never get here. And they get stopped in Colorado by a bunch of jocks and cheerleaders. And I think we should make that our theme movie, except just dub it. And every time they say commies, just put in capitalists, and there we go. That was a joke, Mr. Ashcroft. Okay. So maybe your sense of kin and your sense of skin doesn't extend to the natural world. Maybe you don't yet love the land where you live enough that you'll fight for it. But what if the fascists toxify not only the landscape, but the bodies of those you love? What if their actions put carcinogens into the flesh of your lover, children, mother, brother, sister, father? How many people in here have loved someone who's died of cancer? No, I'm not going to say that. How many people have loved someone who got killed by cancer? That's what, 70, 80%? Which, of course, cancer is a disease of civilization. Who was the idiot who came up with the idea of putting poison on our own food? Would you fight back? What if the fascists toxify your own body? Would you still cling to the illusion that their edicts carry more weight than that brought to bear by their secret and not-so-secret police? The head of South African security, after South Africa was no longer apartheid, the head of security before then said that the thing he'd really been afraid of with the ANC was not their sabotage or even the violence, as it was the possibility that they would convince the mass of people to not have respect for law and order. Because he said no security force in the world can deal with that. So if we can recognize that sometimes law and morality coincide, and quite often, of course, they don't. Anyway, would you work for this regime? Would you teach others its virtues, or would you fight back? If you won't fight back when they toxify your own body, when precisely will you fight back? Give me, and more importantly yourself, a specific threshold at which you finally take a stand. If you can't or won't give that threshold, why not? None of these questions are rhetorical. The questions are real. They are, at this point, some of the most important questions there are. So, when I say fight back, I don't mean only picking up guns. I mean, certainly that's one part. But the wonderful thing about everything being so fucked up is that no matter where we look, there's great work to be done. And so, if your heart carries you to work on a battered women's shelter, that's really important. If it carries you to work on a rape crisis hotline, that's great too. If it carries you to file timber sale appeals, great. I mean, even voting, for crying out loud. People ask me sometimes if I vote, and I say, we all have these dirty habits that we're ashamed of. The thing is, there's this strategy that was used by Robert E. Lee at the Battle of Chancellorsville called hammer and anvil, where you take part of your army and you leave it here as the anvil, and you take part of your army here and you take it around and smash the enemy in between, and that's your hammer. And part of what I think we need to do, we have a fair number of people acting as anvils, and I don't think we have enough people acting as hammers to try to go on the offensive. All of our environmental work is really, for the most part, is pretty defensive. And I mean, I can't speak for any of you, but it's not good enough for me to simply have salmon or grizzly bears or lynx or bobcat live out another generation or two of harried lives before they ultimately get exterminated. I want more than that. I want to actually live in a world where there's more wild salmon come back every year than the year before, and more migratory songbirds, and where there's... I'll do what it takes to get there. Which actually brings us back to hope, that one of the things that kept my mother in the relationship with my father was the false hope that he would change. And another thing that kept her in the relationship, obviously, was that there weren't battered women's shelters in the 50s and 60s. But the main one that I want to talk about is the false hope that he would change. And I was at a dinner get-together thing not very long ago with an attorney from what used to be Sierra Club Legal Defense Fund, I guess it's Earth Justice now, and also with a funder for Earth Justice. And there's some other people there too. And the attorney was saying, if we can just get a Democrat in the White House, things are going to be okay. And if we can just take over the House and Senate, and I was thinking, well, maybe it depends on who we is. I mean, if she means Democrats, then no. But I don't think she also meant storming the House and Senate either. So they're saying all this about how, if we could just get a Democrat in the White House, things will be okay. And my mom was at the dinner, and she said, the Democrats are just as controlled by corporations as the Republicans are. And everybody sort of leaned away and wrinkled their noses as though my mom had just explosively farted. And there was silence for a few moments, and then somebody said, I'm sorry, could you pass me the chips, please? And then, of course, I started talking about baseball. And